guys, and I bought Minecraft Story Mode on the 360 a couple of years ago. Now for games I've owned for a few years, I buy them again. I don't really know why, just randomly. Now, let's look up the asking price for this on Amazon today. This is between this and my college fund. You know what? F college! I'm gonna be depressed! I made the wrong decision. Look at this. This is the average discontinued video game. Discontinued games are basically games that are not really being produced on digital or physical storefronts. You see, companies can't keep producing copies of these forever because it takes a lot of funds to keep producing physical games. And if they aren't supporting the game, there's not really a reason to bring it over to newer consoles. Or they just generally don't care because of lower sales. Today, we'll be going over the instances of those things happening. But first, let me look in my collection to see what I own that is considered discontinued. Well, we're off to a good start. I picked mostly Switch stuff, but I got a couple Xbox 360 things. Some special stuff, Nearly 30 All-Stars, which is a limited release, which is something we can honestly get into another day. But basically, this is my collection of discontinued games. Oh wow, I wasn't expecting Minecraft Story Mode, even though I spent my entire college fund on it. First off, let's go over games for older consoles, most notably Nintendo. Look at all the games from NES all the way to the Wii. You pretty much can't get these games on these consoles without buying them used. And with the Wii and GameCube, it's kind of required because they're not getting ported as much. I mean, there isn't much reason to keep producing them, but we aren't even porting them at all. The only way we can get them is for their older copies, and sometimes you can't even get the case, not only for DS and some 3DS games. Heck, it may even get a generic GameStop case, which is super lame, especially for collectors. And ordering from eBay, yeah, this is rock bottom. Now let's go over boom! Now we're gonna go over games that you really can't get anymore, starting with Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush and its sequel are intensely hard to find nowadays. That's mainly because they were both taken from the PlayStation Store, and now they sell for your taxes. It's also really questionable why Sony didn't have any faith in this series, especially because these games were acclaimed by many, but it's likely gone because the sales weren't that high. Sony probably didn't see any work from the series as the profit wasn't higher, so they pulled the plug. They were even going to shut down Gravity Rush 2's servers down not too long after it launched. Because of the outcry from them doing that, they ended up keeping them online for a year later, so they do indeed know that this have a fan base, they didn't see that as enough in their eyes. Now let's look at a game that pretty much deserved its takedown. Too Human was an Xbox 360 exclusive made by the same people who did Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. Eternal Darkness is seen as one of the best horror games ever, and it's pretty much a cult classic today. So basically this title was destined for greatness, but what if I told you it wasn't? Wow, I never would have guessed. Its combat wasn't good, story was flat, and the game was just not good, and just not what people wanted, especially after Eternal Darkness. But it wasn't taken down because of being bad. It was taken down because of a court case between the developer Silicon Knights and Epic Games because of the use of copyrighted code from Unreal Engine 3, which led Epic Games to win the case and court ruling that all copies of the game would be destroyed, leading the game to not be viable anymore. Well, at least Silicon Knights still exists. Aw, man! Now let's go over a breath of fresh air for an overdrawn series that never got much attention. Driver San Francisco, which was part of a pretty typical racing franchise, which with this game went completely off the rails. In the first mission, it seems like your average racing game, until at the end the protagonist crashes his car and it leaves him in a coma. Now you may be thinking it's just gonna skip time and be a normal racing game of trying to make your way back up to the top. But what if I told you it took place in his coma and it takes place all in his mind? What? And in this coma world, he has a superpower where he can transport to any car and take it over, kind of like the precursor to the Cappy mechanic in Mario Odyssey. It's pretty cool, but it sadly got taken down, and you sadly can't play it easily anymore. It's not available to buy anymore, sadly. It is backwards compatible with Xbox One and Series X and S, but you can't play it unless you have a pre-existing copy. It's not available anymore. It's just sad that this got taken down, but all the old Assassin's Creed games are still up. Oh my god. Now, let me just talk about the original GTA Trilogy. These games were released on PlayStation Store, Steam, and San Andreas were released on Xbox. You can't buy them separately anymore. But the reason you can't buy them separately anymore in their original form is because of GTA The Trilogy The Definitive Edition, which is a name that violates all capacity laws across the world. Also, is an improvement as well. I'm joking, it isn't. Did you really believe me? These 3 games just aren't done as good as playing them in the original form, but you sadly can't anymore, because they were delisted everywhere. So I guess I'll play San Andreas like this. Now I'm sad. They did take it off the Rockstar launcher and ended up adding the original versions again for free if you had it, so that's a step, but that won't stop it not being available on consoles. Now let's look at games that have been saved from the discontinued status. Let's start off with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's a beat-em-up based off the world of the movie and I guess comics, and a downloadable title available through Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, but was unexpectedly taken down mainly because of copyright reasons. But recently, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was finally re-released for all current-gen platforms. The dream has finally been saved! Now let's go to some miscellaneous one. The original Burnout Paradise was delisted mainly because of Definitive Edition on newer consoles, but got relisted for some reason. Can't tell you why. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat was relisted, but I'm not saying much on that, because if it ain't Halo, then... Now let's look at developers' closure affecting games availability. Telltale Games. After their closure, most of their games just ended up fading from the store shelves and online listings. And the online listings that stayed pretty much skyrocketed in their price, making so much more than they were initially. Notably Tales of the Borderlands, Minecraft Story Mode, the Wallace and Gromit games, but all disappeared and they couldn't come back. Some of them did come back, like Tales of Borderlands, but with the others, yeah, it's safe to say that these are unbuyable now. Especially Minecraft Story Mode, because the new Telltale probably doesn't have the rights to it anymore, so they can't supply the game. Now let's go over tons of digital-only games going down because of their digital shop closures. First up, the Wii Shop channel. This was such a cozy place on the Wii, and it had really great music. Switch eShop. It had a ton of older games to download for the Virtual Console, and most importantly, WiiWare. WiiWare was home to a bunch of indie and bite-sized titles that weren't really good enough for full physical releases, but were perfect to be sold on WiiWare. This service contains stuff like Bit Trip, Tetris Party, and Dr. Mario Subtitle. Oh crap, it's Online RX, okay. I forgot about that one. But sadly, the entire shop was closed in January of 2019, leaving all these games to be unplayable unless you had already bought the games prior to the closure. Some of these have been saved via emulation, and a couple got released physically, namely Tetris Party, but besides that, they're all gone. There was a similar event with the DSi shop, which mainly contained DSiWare, which was similarly indie and bite-sized titles that couldn't get a physical release, but there's a catch to that. But technically it's not gone, because all the DSiWare games were brought over to 3DS eShop, which is still running, so that's nice, but we better be prepared before that leads us to. Now let's go over close calls for digital storefronts being taken down, the PS3 and Vita shops. These were announced to be closing this year, but there was plenty of outrage after Sony announced this. This was because there are still a lot of digital-only titles that can't be played elsewhere on the PS3 and Vita. So Sony backtracked and decided not to for now, which is honestly awesome. Well, I think we're done, because that was most of the notable ones I could bring up today. Now there are so many more, but I think I'd probably bring them enough. Overall, delisting of a video game is disheartening if you can't get them unless you already own them, or if you go looking on GameStop or eBay, you might not find them for a good price, or if not the case, or sometimes a generic case, you're not into that. So case in point, this stuff happening really does suck, especially for preserving games. Anyways, after going through all that, I can see if buying that game was actually worth it or not. It's here! Aw, dang. It's Snoopy's Adventure. You know what? The mail system really is bad these days. All they deliver is Snoopy's adventure. I hate it.